Welcome to episode 2 of the Snap Chatter podcast, the show where we snap at each other in the hopes that maybe one of us will retreat or we'll stick around just to see how the game ends. I'm one of your hosts, Logan.
I'm the guy who sticks around just to see how the thing's gonna, wrap up.
See, man, I've gotten super conservative lately when it comes to snapping. If someone snaps like turn 5 or turn 6, and I'm like, I'm gonna bow out. You probably got something that I don't know about.
Unless it's an 8 cube, and I'm like, there's no way I'm taking this, and I don't want to lose the cubes. Nate McKeever does not back down.
Well, let me ask you this: do you care when it comes to the rank and stuff? Do you care about reaching infinite or not? Because I know when I first started playing, I cared about it. Like I obsessed over it.
Mm-hmm.
But now I'm like, I'm just here. I'm just here to play. I'm here to see some crazy combos.
I like to climb, but what I will say is when I get too invested into it, like if it gets to a point where it's like I'm ready to like scream or like want to throw my phone across the room, that's when I'm like, okay, I'm going to take a break. I'm not going to worry about cubes. Like you still practice like cube management, but I don't worry about like the whole like chasing infinite. And the highest I've ever gotten, I think, is 70. Broke 70 one time. Which I was like, that felt,
that's pretty high.
I'll tell you what too, man, like, and when you get into 60, it gets mean.
It does get mean. It gets hard.
It gets really tough. You have to be like really on it. And that's when you see like the really just like, for lack of a better term, like cheesy decks where it's like, you're seeing like the same three, like, oh, okay. Like, last season or last battle pass, it was, like, oh, you've got a Zabu deck. Oh, you've got a Wong deck. Oh, you've got a Surfer deck or some combination of the three. Yeah, it's like, okay, cool.
Yeah, it's pretty much like once you see Brood, then you're like, okay, let me guess. Wong. There's the Wong. Let me guess. Mystique. There's the Mystique. Let me guess. Silver Surfer turn 6. Silver Surfer turn 6. There it is. Okay.
It's like, that's a neat trick. Okay, like
that's
cool.
Neat.
Like take your cubes, take your cubes and get out of my face.
My favorite thing was when I saw that so much, I started putting Cosmo in all my decks. The moment I saw Wong, it's like Cosmo on that deck, dude. And then they'd always bounce out. It's like, yeah. Cosmo is the best boy in Marvel Snap.
He is a total buzzkill when he kills your lane, but he's good stuff.
He's a good boy. He's a good boy, especially right now with the current meta being just discard decks all over the place because of MODOK. So it is what it is. But anyway, listeners, welcome back to another episode of the Snap Chatter podcast. This is your weekly podcast about the smash hit mobile game, Marvel Snap. It's a game that we love so much that our co-host kicked us off our other podcast so we could do this one. I'm kidding about that. They didn't kick us off. We were like, hey, we should probably.
Now, I heard what Micah said to you, dude. I heard what Micah said to you.
He said this was the most exciting change that we've done in TRG, starting the Marvel Snap podcast. So he didn't have to listen to it every episode when we record. But yeah, I don't blame him.
He also said that he loved how much hype that the two of us had for this game.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and there's a lot of hype. So much hype that in this episode, because again, I kind of pitched it to people who listen to TRG and, people who also coincidentally listen to the Backlog Breakdown. We run in the same circles. That what I wanted to do with this podcast is I still want to cater to seasoned players because we're both, I'm out of pool 3. I don't know if you're still in pool 3.
I think I'm wrapping up pool 3.
Okay.
I think... So, like, right now, I'm saving up for Electro. He's, like, one of the ones who's eluded me.
Great card.
Dude, yeah. I am so pumped to get him because, like, I have ideas. And I've seen some of them in play. But it's, like, my big... Okay, and I'm just going to... Spoilers, and it's not anything new. But, like, my big... Like, I want to throw him in a Destruction ramp deck. It's, like...
Okay.
Like, so you throw him in there... You get the 1 energy bump and then you kill him next turn. You feed him to something and like you get the energy and you get to play as many cards as you need.
Yeah. I never thought about that actually. I should probably do that more. Because I have Electro. People that follow me on Twitter know that I somehow randomly pulled Galactus out of a collector's cache.
Oh, dude, Super jealous. Super jealous.
Yeah, that's like the luckiest I'll ever be. With the exception of getting Metroid Prime Remastered just shadow dropped today, the date that we're recording. That was a nice surprise. But I have Electro in there, so that way on turn 5 I can drop Galactus, and then it's like turn 6, it's like a final showdown, like Highlander. Me and the other player, like we're in one lane, like let's go, let's see what we got. But that's a good time. Yeah, Electro's a great card for just getting some early cards out, really doing some nice surprises, especially. Dude, you were talking last episode about that Black Panther, long Black Panther Arnim Zola thing.
Yeah,
dude, if you can do that even earlier with Electro, oh my gosh! Dude,
and then what you do? So I think the way that one worked, if I remember right, was it was either had Elysium, so cards cost 1 less.
So the cards would cost less, yeah.
Or maybe it was like it pulled something into it. I don't remember exactly how it happened. It might have like pulled my Wong or.
Whoa, easy there.
Yeah, the Wong square. That could be awkward.
Yeah.
But somehow I got like a little bit of like the energy ramp. Because I think actually what happened in that one was Wong, Black Panther, Arnim Zola, and then the Arnim Zola thing hit just right so that Wong hit first and then Black Panther. And so he jumps up a bunch of times. And then the next turn I had Odin in my hand, drop Odin in. Zola copies, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Zola
kept it going.
Hits, and then it goes all sorts of crazy and just all over the place.
It's the train.
Yeah,
that's the train. Yeah, that's one of the fun things about Arnim Zola is like you can really pull some fun stuff with it. We talked the last episode about my Venom combo with that, and it's just Zola's a fun card.
Truth be told, when I first got him, I was like, I don't get this, and then I started playing around with him. Yeah, and I was like, oh no, dude, this guy's like, he's sick.
He's the bee's knees. Yeah. That's what I thought too when I first saw him. I was like, destroys a card, plays it. That sounds stupid. And then I played it. I'm like, oh, this is actually really cool because it reactivates their on reveal abilities too. So, it's nice. But that's actually, man, we're just rolling on these segues here on these episodes here. We're 2 for 2. One of the things that, we want to talk about this episode here, because we want to cater to some of the seasoned players because, we're seasoned. We've been playing for a couple months now. But we also want to cater this to the new players, those of you that are just jumping in, or maybe you've played for a month or so, or just a couple weeks. And we kind of want to share some of our knowledge a little bit, discuss a little bit at kind of like what we wish we knew before playing Marvel's Snap, because there's a lot of things about this game that, as deliciously simple as it is, there's some nuance to it that if you aren't paying attention, it can mess you up a little bit. And I kind of want to talk about that this episode, maybe help some of the newer players out and see if we can share some wisdom with them as well. Nate, let's start with you, man. What's something that you kind of wish you knew before you jumped into Marvel Snap?
So I'm a tinkerer. Like I've always loved deck building. Like, we referenced in the first episode, I used to play Magic the Gathering. The thing that I would do, and when I was playing Magic the Gathering Arena, I just build decks. I build decks and I build decks and I build decks. And I'm like, because I like to see the trick happen, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is great for somebody like me who, is like that way. But I think that one of the first bits of, and I have a couple, but the most critical is like, especially if you aren't sort of bent that way, really learn how to play one. And even with me, this is like, if I could go back and source it, I'd say learn how to play one deck really well.
Yes. Yeah.
Like,
I would absolutely 100% agree with that.
Learn how to play, like, the very first deck that I built on my own was a Devil Dino Draw. Like, it was sort of like, obviously like had Collector, Moon Girl, Devil Dino Synergy, like that kind of had a lot of that stuff. The one thing I would say is like, just learn how to play that deck and win more often than not when you're at disadvantages, etc. And, like tweak the deck, do what you need to, but learn how to play one deck really, really well before you move on to another deck. Find the style that works for you, and there's a whole bunch of like, you've sort of got the basic mechanics. You have like move, you have discards, you have destruction decks, you have on reveal styles, you have the ongoings, and the
Which,
best
real
decks.
quick, to interject real quick, we will be doing an episode covering those different decks a little bit later on. We won't be able to do it all in this episode, but
Yeah,
we'll get into the nitty gritty about those a little bit later. But yeah, I wanted to interject and mention that.
Yeah. The best decks actually, I found, use a combination of all of those cards to work together.
Yeah, 100%.
But those archetypes do exist. But what I would say is like find a deck that you really enjoy playing, learn to play that, and learn how to like see the rhythms and sort of like, because the thing is with the way that the zones change and everything, you've got to be a little flexible, you've got to be a little agile, and you've got to know what you need to do, every game. And you're not going to like, so, and even when I build stuff, so like, and I referenced it, and I'll probably talk about it a lot. It's one of my favorite decks to play, that Cat Scratch Fever deck. The first time I built it, I was like, I see some interesting synergies. And it was like, and I kind of like, and I tweaked it and I played around with it. But the first time I had it go off in an unexpected way, I was like, holy smokes. Like, this is like some mad scientist bananas garbage, and I love it. Like,
yeah.
And it went off in a way that I did not expect. And so I'm just saying, like, like learn how the decks, like play them until like you think you've seen everything that the deck has to offer. And yeah, get comfortable with it. Just take your time getting to learn one deck.
Yeah. I would 100% echo that. Is just this whole, just take your time with the game and definitely experiment with the different cards. I might have talked about this in the last episode, but definitely just kind of mess around with the cards, because especially as you first start out in the game, you complete the tutorial, you go off into pool 2, you're getting more cards because you're leveling up your collection level pretty regularly at that point. It's not until pool 3 that it slows down to a bit of a grind. You're still mixing matching cards, and it's fun to just kind of, put your lab coat on and try some different decks and see what you really like. I honestly, for the longest time, thought discard decks were stupid. And to be fair, like early on, they're not that great. They're okay, but they're not that great. But as you kind of get more and more cards to flesh that out and you get into pool 3, I love discard decks. I don't know what it is about them. I don't know if it's watching the card get sliced in half.
Dude, it's a dominant build.
Yeah.
It really,
it's
like,
beefy.
If you have the right cards for it, they can be savage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty much once I got Calling Wing and paired her with Swarm, and then got Dracula and just focused on destroying Apocalypse as much as I could, so Dracula could absorb that power and then boost Morbius at the same time. I was like, oh my gosh, I love all these cards working together at one point. And it really, I guess, to kind of differentiate from your one of the things that you wish you knew, Nate, is my thing is to stop. Well, maybe not stop, but as you play more of the game, start thinking of the cards as pairs instead of just singular. Okay. So like if you get Arrow, for example, I know someone that I know recently just got Arrow, right? Don't think of Arrow as just one card that's a 5 cost, 7 power card that's going to pull a card over that your opponent plays to wherever Arrow is. Start thinking of like, okay, how can I use this with another card? Well, if I hold on to Arrow until turn 6, play Kingpin on another lane who activates this ability on turn 6 to destroy cards that move over here, maybe play Kingpin and then play Arrow on turn 6, pull the cards over, and then Kingpin just destroys those cards. Something to think about, Same thing with Magneto. He's a similar concept, a 6 cost, 12 power card, beefy card. Playing with Kingpin or something like that, or maybe play. Gosh, you could probably do that with destruction decks too. Pull Carnage or things like that. Polaris is another one that moves cards. You talk about move cards. Dude, you could pair Arrow with Kraven, even pull a card over, Kraven gets a buff. It's stuff like that. When you think of like how to pair your cards up together and you start thinking of like pairs instead of just single cards. Oh my gosh, that changed the game entirely for me. I was playing a whole new game at that point. And so it's wild to think of. Now I have this move where, speaking of pairs, I will play Black Widow, who's a 2 cost, 1 power card. And then I'll play Hazmat, 2 cost, 2 power card that lowers the power of all the cards on the field. And then I'll play Viper to send that Black Widow over to the other person's lane and clog it up with a 0 power card. Then they're like, oh crap, what the heck? Follow that up with a Green Goblin. That lane's closed.
Dude, I love that. I love that so much, dude.
Yeah.
That is sick.
It's fun stuff, man.
That is a good time. Hazmat's one of my favorites, man.
I like to do that also with like Debris, and then I'll play Hazmat and then play Viper to send one of those negative rocks back over to another lane. It's mean.
Debris, Hazmat, like again, sort of referencing Cat Scratch Fever. Favorite combo is like to just clog their lanes. I had some dude, and we were turn 5, and I just ripped out Debris, closed off all his lanes, and I think it was like the double on reveal field. I can't remember what that zone is.
Camouflage,
clogged all his lanes, popped a Hazmat in right after her, and one of the things I like to do. So like, I'm all about the combos too. I like to hide cards. So Invisible Girl, that's my girl, dude. Invisible Girl, Luke Cage, one of my favorite hides. Because then like everybody's like, what are you doing? Like you're just ripping down the field. And then it's like, well, for you. But yeah. So
it's pretty good. It's pretty good. Yeah, that's my main thing. I mean, I love the take it slow experiment, but also just like think about cards as like pairs instead of just single cards, man. Because when you start doing that, that's when you start making some real nasty combos. But Nate, what's another thing that you kind of wish you knew before you started playing Marvel Snap?
I think the biggest thing, and it's a trap for me still, right? Don't get locked into claiming just one lane.
Yes. Like absolutely.
Like, you know, have your plan, have your big plays, but as often as you can, try to play all 3 lanes. And this is going to sound like duh, but like so often, like I'll be like, no, this is what I want to do in this lane. And if something goes sideways, like somebody drops a Hobgoblin or a Green Goblin, or they rip out a Cosmo and they shut down like my combos or whatever, at that point in time, you know, you've got to pivot. Don't get like locked into like, this is how I need to win this lane, et cetera, et cetera. You really do have to like, and a lot of times when I like win big, it's because it's like, I see them and it's like, I'm like, you're playing one lane. You're not taking, and I mean, I played enough games at this point in time. Like, you know, it's like, you know, I've seen like the Khazar Ultron decks. I've seen that kind of stuff. And it's like, okay, dude, like I see what you're doing here. And I'm looking at the power. And even if you have Khazar, Blue Marvel and Onslaught out, you're not kicking enough power across the board. You know, you've either got Onslaught or Ultron. Like, and again, I've played a ton of these games. Like I've seen this deck pop up a bunch of times, and it's like, you've got to play every lane and you've got to be thinking about every lane. Don't get stuck in saying like, this is the one that I need. Like, you know, and when you get a thing like the Doctor Strange, the one where you can't play any cards, you can move cards into it, but you can't play.
Oh, Sanctum Sanctorum.
Couldn't remember the name of that for a second. But like when you get stuff like that, or when you get stuff like Death's Altar or Death's Realm, or the Domain of Death or whatever it's called, like, you know, you're not always going to have an armor in there to like shut down the destruction aspect, or you're not going to have Colossus or whatever. Like, so play, you know, just make sure that you're playing all the lanes the best way that you can.
Yeah. Absolutely. That kind of ties in with one of the things that I wish I knew before playing Marvel Snap, and that's the retreat button. You know, it's right there on the screen every match. You know, you can bow out at any time. But man, when I first started playing, boy, if you snapped at me, I would take that personally, right? I'm like, is that a personal attack? Okay, I'm gonna snap back. Let's get you a little bit. But man, it's one of those things where now I'm like, okay, they snapped. What do I think they have? I played this long enough to know what they may have, what they may not have. I somehow always still forget about Shang-Chi being in the game, so it wipes out my 9 power cards, or if they're higher. But now I'm like, you know what? these matches are so quick. I'll just retreat here. One of the things that gets me the most is when people snap on turn 6 and I'm like, okay, enjoy your 1 cube. I'm out. Retreat. Let's go play another match.
Nah,
I guess
the
that's
snapping
I
on
guess that's
turn
a 2
six
for
will get
1.
me sometimes. Where I'm
Really?
like, what do you think you're gonna do? Because like I know what I have in my hand, and I have a pretty
Mhm.
good idea of what you have in your hand.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
I just realized I can't say anything because someone did get me earlier with a snap on turn 6. I was like, I don't see what you could possibly do to win right now. And then I saw what they did. I'm like, oh, okay, fair enough. Well, take my cubes, I guess.
yeah,
But yeah, definitely don't be afraid to hit the retreat button. It's just, especially with how quick these matches are, you can retreat, get in a new match in an instant. Don't be afraid to retreat. And it's not one of those things where even if you snap and you realize I'm going to lose, hit retreat. You're better off losing 2 cubes than 4, or losing 4 cubes than 8, but it's just one of those things that you just kind of got to learn as you play more of the game. Is you'll learn, especially if you take Nate's advice earlier of just sticking with one deck, you'll know if you have a good hand and you'll know when you have a bad hand. And it's like, okay, this is a bad pull of cards. I need to get out of here. That just kind of goes along with it. Don't be afraid to retreat. Okay.
yeah.
It's not that bad. But if you do snap on turn 6 and win, don't emote like crazy, like the junior high children do that play this
Oh,
game.
sometimes. Well, and this kind of leads into the next one, and you, I think, hit it a little bit. Don't take it personal, right? Dude,
Where were you at earlier when I needed you, Nate?
oh
Because
no, man!
I took
Like
that turn 6 loss at
I'm
personal.
speaking from experience. Like, and I do this all the time. Like, dude, like I talk so much trash sometimes when I'm playing. Like, I call people clown shoes, sometimes other things.
My wife can tell you some of the stuff I tell people when I play this game. I'm like, what do you got? What you got, Junior?
Like,
I mean, there's more mean stuff I say, but we don't need to repeat it here on the
and it's like,
podcast.
and especially like if they've kind of been like playing obnoxiously, and I beat them, like
Uh-huh.
I will jam on that, like the thumbs up one where I'm just like,
Yeah.
I'm like, breaking my phone. I'm like tapping it so hard. I'm like, hey, cool. You thought you were going to be a toxic turd. Suck farts, pal.
Toxic turd suck farts.
Sorry. I know this is supposed to be like G.
I love it. I love it. I can just hear it now. If we ever play in battle mode, you'll be sitting there like suck turds or whatever you said.
Suck farts, man. Yeah.
Oh
But
man.
I
Don't take it personally,
don't
right?
take it personally. Like it's like it really is like a few years ago there was a dude, I can't remember who he played for. He was a hockey player. He's like, why you have to be so mad? It's only a game. And it's like, for me, it's like, if you lose sometimes, and so just
Yeah.
take the L and like just
Yeah.
learn what you need to. Cause like I think one of the things too is like when you lose, right? Think about why you lost. Like there's so
Yeah.
many times where I've played and I'm like, I played stupid. It's like if
Yeah.
I would have spread out, like, if I would have dropped him in this lane instead of trying to secure this lane that I pretty much already had buttoned up and wasn't really a threat, I
Mm-hmm.
would have taken it. But because I didn't, that was the big swing. Or
Yeah.
it's kind of like it's just one of those things. Like look at every opportunity and every L as just an opportunity to learn a little bit more about the game, learn how you should play, learn about the rhythms, and just like I said, don't take it personal. And even if somebody's like being like a toxic, jerk, right? Like I
Mm-hmm.
mentioned the dude who, like, when we talked about me and my desire to see Scorpion nerfed, I talked about the dude who just
Mm-hmm.
kept playing him on
Yeah.
not the bar with no name, the other one, Luke's bar.
Luke's bar. Yeah.
Yeah, and he just kept bouncing it back into his hand. And
Yeah.
I was like, dude, like I remember being so mad at that game,
Yeah.
and just like and like honestly, like that's the thing. Even what you were saying, like, use escape freely. But like if you've got
Yeah.
somebody who's just kind of being obnoxious and they're just snapping and they're just making garbage plays, dip out. It is not
Yeah.
worth like the emotional like baggage and the psychological baggage to like. And that
Mm-hmm.
dude lived in my head for like all of like 10 minutes. I was like, I said a lot of mean things about him in my head, and I would just say like,
Man,
hey, like,
I can't believe fart sucker. What a jerk.
yeah, dude, like get out of here with that noise, man, clown. But yeah, I would just say like, hey, don't take it personal. And if like you find yourself taking it, like getting a little too heated or whatever, like, or you're playing somebody and they're just like doing like all the things that you hate, yeah, like you said, like just dip out. Like
Yeah.
it's just like, and that's tough, especially for me. Like,
Yeah.
so
It's hard. It's hard, especially when you're competitive. No, totally. But with that being said, listeners, let us know. Some people that listen to this are also seasoned players. Let us know what some of your tips are that you would give to new players as well. Something to just be aware of. I know we can't cover them all in this podcast because of time constraints. However, what we can do, we're great at these segues here. I think we're going to be known for our segues here on this podcast. We're talking about dipping out, right? When to retreat. This is going to introduce kind of a new segment that's going to come up every now and then. A couple episodes here called Snap or Tap. This is where Nate and I are going to give each other a scenario, and we're going to say, are we going to tap out, or are we going to snap back, and what we're going to snap back with? So, Nate, did you bring a scenario for me, man?
I got one for you, man.
Because I got one for you too. All right, let me hear yours, and I'll let you know if I'm going to snap or tap.
All right. So somebody rips out Wong, and it doesn't even have to be on the doubling.
Tap. I mean, go ahead and finish it, but I'll tell you right now.
Well,
tap.
Yeah, I was just gonna say like, you don't have Enchantress and you don't have Cosmo, or you've already played both of them or something like that.
Yeah.
But like, so Wong is just an automatic like dip out for you.
100%. Just because every single time I have tried to stick out a match when I'm facing off against Wong, where I don't have Cosmo, who I have in just about all my decks now, I always lose. I always lose because I know as soon as they play Wong, there's going to bring White Tiger followed by an Odin. They're going to flood the entire board with the 7 power tigers.
Or if it's not him, they're going to do something like what I like to do. They're going to do like Hazmat and Ironheart.
Yep. Ironheart, Silver Surfer, Black Panther, and Arnim Zola. I can never counter it if I don't have something like Cosmo to curb it. Or even Rogue, when I rarely play her, I bow out because I can't counter it. Wong he's a scary boy. He's a scary boy. He will get you.
It depends, and for the most part, I'm there with you, right? But it depends. Like if I have one of those lanes nailed, like I'm talking like a 20-point lead or something like that. Like if I've got one of those lanes just really tacked down, that is really hard to sort of compete with. And you're right. Like they could pull out like a White Tiger, but then you can usually lock down the lane that they've got Wong in. Like if you can beat them out on that, that's almost a guarantee. Because like the highest power card they're going to play in that, like on any of those scenarios, okay, is like they're going to be like if they're doing the Black Panther Zola thing, like if you've got a decent stack against one of those lanes, you might be able to withstand some of that. Maybe not.
Yeah. I guess it also depends on if I have priority or not, which is something we probably should have talked about
priority
here.
Yeah.
But I mean, just real quick for new players, priority is how you know who plays what first. So you can tell by just looking up at the top of your screen, whoever has the glowing name tag, that's who's going to go first. So I guess if I was going to go first, I could probably play something to clog that lane. Most of the time I'll say this, I would probably tap unless I'm playing my day in retail deck where I would just like send something over to clog that lane up.
Like if I have debris, if I have debris, I'll throw her in another lane. I'll throw a rock in your lane, and all of a sudden that's like one less thing that you're doing in that lane.
And that could throw off a whole combo. Yeah. Yeah, I'll still say like most of the time I'm gonna tap because I've been in too many fights with Wong to know I'm probably gonna lose.
I'm waiting for him to get nerfed, honestly.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised he hasn't, but I don't know how you would nerf him. What would you do? Just make him a 4-0?
I'd make him a 4-0. He's
Okay.
dude, like
That's
the
spicy.
way that or like maybe a 4/1. The way like he's such a game changer. That I mean, like the fact that like he is in like almost every last one of the like the really dominant climbing decks I've seen. He shows up in at least half of them.
Yeah, he's beefy. Okay, fair enough.
So what's yours for me, man?
So here's mine, man. Did I write it down? I did write it down. Perfect. Okay, mine is kind of a similar situation. You don't have Enchantress or Rogue or Cosmo, but you're running up against an Invisible Woman with 2 concealed cards. Do you snap or tap?
Oh, dude, I'm not. Invisible Woman, I love her because like, and can we just talk about her utility for a second? Like she hides those cards until the end of the game, so you can set up like some combos. If somebody throws down an Enchantress, all they do is they disenchant her and they activate the reveal early. You throw Rogue at it. Cosmo is the only effective counter, but if you're like me and you're hiding like ongoing cards behind her, like no good. So, I mean, I'm going to be honest. Most of the time, I'm going to snap on it. I'm going to like, let's see what you got. Like, because I mean, sometimes it's like, oh, they rip out a Luke Cage or something, and like me, or maybe they're hiding like a Wong and like Hazmat behind it or something like that, or a Wong and Ironheart, or a Wong and there are like a couple like I've seen people hide Ebony Maw behind her before, in that 7-power swings. Yeah.
Okay.
Turn 2, drop Invisible Girl, you hide, and then you drop Ebony Maw in there.
That's smart. I didn't even think about that, because then you have a set like a 9 power just in that lane and put some more stuff in there.
Yeah.
Whoa, that's beefy. I like that.
I mean,
I like that.
Most of the time, you don't see too much with her, but like I'm always like interested. Now, if it's like we've got like 8 cubes riding on or like 4 cubes riding on this, and it's like turn 4 and it's a really tight game, I might bow out just because like I'm not willing to risk 8 cubes on that. But like most of the time, like I'm curious. It's like, well, you got to hide them behind there.
Okay. Right on. Well, cool. Well, that leads us into, as we kind of close out this episode here of Snap Chatter, let's highlight some cards real quick, man. Some of our favorite ones, maybe from pool 1, 2, or 3. Doesn't really matter. Just kind of highlight a card and what do we like about it. So Nate, let's go with you, man. What's a card you want to highlight this episode?
I want to talk about 2 if I can, right?
Yeah.
I want to talk about the wicked little pair that is Angela and Bishop.
Dude,
turn 2 Angela, turn 3 Bishop, and you can drop a couple of 1 spots in there or another card, and it gets like, especially if you're dropping like tons of 1s and 2 drops, like that's a like, and for newer listeners, Angela, she's a 2 cost, 0 power, and every time you play another card in that lane, she gets +2. And Bishop, every card you play after him, he gets +1 power on that. So you've got this nice little block where you've got some like constant drip feeding power in there. It's a solid little chunk. So those are 2 cards that you'll come across fairly early on as you're sort of like, getting, building your collector's level. And they're a nice they're a nice combo to start out with.
Yeah, I actually still see those pairs every now and again at the level I'm at. I'm actually, I don't know what collection level I'm at. It's over 3,000. But I still see that. It's because it's so effective. I mean, oh my gosh, you can easily win 1 or 2 lanes just with that. And I mean, especially when you pair it with Mysterio, who plays each of the illusions as an actual card. So you're getting 3 to Bishop and then at least 1 on Angela. It's pretty nasty. It is.
It's nasty. I mean, and they've got some great synergy with just a bunch of other cards too. So
100%. Well, the one that I want to highlight this episode, I believe this is a pool 3 card. Let me double check. I've got it pulled up here over on Marvel snapzone.com. It is a pool 3 card. Might be an early pull 3 card, might be a late one. It just depends on when you get it. I got him kind of midway, but also one of my favorite Marvel superheroes, who is also a really, really good card. My boy, Daredevil, Man Without Fear. 2 power, 2 cost card. When you play him down on turn 5, you see what your opponent plays on turn 5. So you get to see the cards before they get played. And that's when you get to decide, okay, I think I can beat this. Or you can be like, actually, I don't have anything to counter this. I'm going to go ahead and bow out. Just a awesome card. Probably almost a little bit like cheating, but it's a really good card. Plus the effect that he does when he sends out the red sonar waves and the whole thing turns red and you're looking at the card. It's a cool effect. It's a really cool effect.
Let me throw an impromptu snapper tap at you.
Oh, okay.
Your opponent on turn 2, turn 3, somewhere early in the game, rips out a Daredevil, right? It just, and let's just say it looks like they might be playing like Destructor or a Destroyer deck or something something along those lines. Because again, Daredevil has some great synergy. There's some great 5 drops that like he plays really nicely with. My personal favorite is Daredevil. I see what lane you're playing, and then I like to shut down a lane with Professor X. Doesn't matter what kind of deck I'm playing.
You're one of those people. Okay.
I am that guy. But like I've used him to like secure a lane for Devil Dino, where I can sort of like, but let's just say like it's turn 5, they've got Daredevil out and they snap, and you're looking at your hand and you're like, let's just say like you've got like a couple of options, but you're not totally sold on this, like, and again, like just make the assumption that it's a tight sort of game, like you're within like a couple of points of each other. What do you do? What do you do with that, man?
I think what I would do, and now that I'm thinking about this is probably what I should have done with your first snapper tap, is throw out Galactus on a lane all by himself and snap back and just see what happens. Just watch them be like, how are you going to counter this? Because you're about to lose 2 lanes full of cards. So what are you going to do? Do you got something to counter it? Because at that point, it's like, you don't even know what I have. It's like, okay, he's dropping Galactus. We're about to go down to 1 lane. Do I have stuff that's going to counter it? What if he has Death? Because that's going to be a 0 cost, And then at that point, if I play, oh my gosh, if it's even on the lane with Daredevil, and it's a 2 against 2 power, and I don't have priority, your Shang-Chi ain't going to do much if you have one. Oh, man. Yeah, I'm going to snap. I'm going to snap on that one. I'm feeling spicy. Let's go.
You want to see what happens. Like, dude, I'll be honest, like turn 5, if they've got Daredevil out and they snap, I'm almost guaranteed dipping out. Because it's like, I've seen all the nasty little tricks people pull, and I'm like, no, thank you. You can Spider-Man on that. You can, shut down a lane, you can do all sorts of like, there's all sorts of like interruption and nonsense you can pull on that. That's where true. I'm just like, no thanks.
That's true. They could drop an arrow too and then pull Galactus over if they have priority. I guess it really just depends on if I have priority or not, now that I think about it. Huh. Good times. Good times. Anyway, listeners, y'all let us know what situations that you see in games that just make you want to tap out, or things that let you know you're pretty much guaranteed to win and you're going to snap anyway. Let us know in all the various ways that you can connect with us. That is over on YouTube if you're watching this, youtube.com/SnapChatterPod, or connect with us on Twitter at SnapChatterPod. You can let us know all the sorts of stuff over there. And you can follow us on social media as well. Nate, let them know where the lovely folks can find you.
I am Nate_McKeever pretty much across social media on, PlayStation, all the places. It's my user handle. I'm super boring, super on brand.
Fair enough. Mine is simple enough as it is. It's just the Theo Logan. You can find me on Twitter, Discord, all sorts of places as well, and in Marvel Snap as well. At the time this episode releases, I don't know what my avatar is going to be. It might be back to Devil Dinosaur, but it might be, I don't know. It might be what's kind of a goofy one that I could put on there.
Do you have Cosmo? I don't have Cosmo yet, and I kind of want him.
I don't know. I think I do have Cosmo actually. I might switch it to Cosmo.
Cosmo's a good time, man.
Cosmo is a good time. I just got Polaris recently, and I was like, I don't know why I would ever do this, but I might just for kicks and giggles. But we'll see. Yeah. We'll see how it goes. With that being said, also, listeners, thank you for listening. Leave reviews of the podcast if you're liking it so far on your app of choice, YouTube. Like and subscribe to the channel, share it, and all sorts of fun stuff. I want to let you know, next week's episode is our first lore card episode. I got my buddy, the resident Marvel Encyclopedia friend of mine, Colin, doing a lore card episode, giving you a background on this season's card, MODOK. So you're going to learn a little bit more about MODOK, how he came to be MODOK, and some interesting run-ins he's had with different Marvel heroes as well. So be looking out for that. And then we'll be back with a longer episode of Snap Chatter the week after that. We'll keep it going from there. But again, thank you all for your support, your kind words, encouragement, and all sorts of feedback and stuff like that you've been giving us. Looking to continue doing the Snap Chatter and making some really good content with you along the way. But with that being said, y'all keep on snapping, and we'll see you in the next episode.